How do you get from a first draft to a finished one? Find out in this video series, continuing with point of view and goals. Hi, I'm Iris Marsh, and I help indie authors with their manuscripts so they can publish with confidence. By the end of this video, you'll have learned which POVs there are, what narrative drive is, and how you can pick your character's goal. Stick until the end for a special offer. Let's dive deeper into POV and goals. So what is POV? Point of view, or POV, denotes from which viewpoint or which character the story is told and in which tense. So there are three types of POV. This is first person POV. So here the POV character tells the story as I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm feeling this. In second person POV, the reader is the POV character, so it's told with you are doing this, you are thinking this, you are saying this. And in a third person POV, the POV character's viewpoint is told through the lens of a narrator. So here it's using he or she or they. For instance, he is doing this, he is saying this, he's thinking such and such. And third person POV can also be divided further. So you can have an omniscient narrator, so omniscient third person POV. Here the narrator, so the person who's telling the story, is privy to all the thoughts, all the emotions, all of that, of all the characters all the time. So here you can have a chapter where you can experience the thoughts, for instance, of multiple characters within this one chapter. Then there's also limited third-person POV. Here the narrator is only privy to the thoughts, emotions, and such of the protagonist or the character that they're following, which doesn't necessarily have to be the protagonist, but often is. Then the other question is, which tense do you use? So stories can be written in past tense or present tense. You could also use future tense, but I don't think I've ever seen a story written in future tense, so I'm not sure how well that will work. So most likely you'll pick between present or past tense. Most commonly, stories are told in past tense because that's how we've ingrained telling stories. You know, it's the once upon a time there was a princess type of thing. But in recent times, more and more stories are being written in present tense. For instance, The Hunger Games or The Invisible Life of Eddie LaRue are some examples of this. And this creates more immediacy because everything is happening right now as you're reading it. Some readers will hate this. I've seen comments from readers on present tense where they just don't like it, but I don't feel that's a reason not to use it, because many more readers won't even notice that it's written in a different tense, or they might notice it, but then get used to it and don't really care about it that much. So just pick the tense that makes the most sense for your story and your genre. It's always a good idea to look at books similar to yours, so in a similar genre, and see what they're doing, which POV are they using. So are they using mostly first person POV or mostly third person POV? Second person POV is not very common. This is mostly used in fan fiction, but there are novels that use it effectively. And in terms of tense, you can check whether they most often use present tense or most often use past tense. And then you can also look at what you prefer to write in, because you want to make it as easy as possible on yourself as well. Then we look at narrative device, because this is part of the entire POV structure as well. So what is narrative device? And this is who is telling the story, to whom, and why. So where you have POV, which is part of the who of telling the story, because it's told in either first person, second person, or third person. But with a narrative device, you specify this further. So this helps you determine which bits are relevant to tell in your story, and also how you're telling it. So it's also important for you to develop your voice as you're telling the story. For instance, Bridget Jones' Diary would be a very different story if, instead of writing it in her diary and thus being very honest, she would tell the story to her child. Like, she would leave certain things out to make herself look better, most likely. So the who could be the protagonist, it could be a side character or an outside narrator. Among others, there are always other options, as well as for the whom and the why. So the whom could also be future generations, to themselves or to their children. And why they're telling the story could be to document their history, to tell how someone's parents met, or to give a warning to others finding themselves in a similar position. Then there's goals. What are goals? So according to the dictionary, goals are the end toward which effort is directed. So in other words, the goal is something that you want to reach. Thus, you take actions to reach this goal. And within your story, you want both your protagonist and your antagonist to have a clear overarching goal. And these goals can change or adapt throughout the story because, of course, they experience certain challenges along the way and certain obstacles, so their goal might remain the same or very similar, but it can change slightly in how they're going about it. So for instance, at the start of the story, a protagonist wants to earn enough money to pay off their debt, and this could change to protagonist wants to save the princess and strike the reward to pay off their debt. But perhaps even further along in the story, the goal becomes different when, for instance, they start to become in love with the princess, and they just want to make sure that the princess gets home safe, and they're not even that worried anymore about the reward. So for this exercise, for your goal, you pick the goal that your protagonist or your antagonist sets from the moment they accept their call to action. You pick the goal for your protagonist from the moment they accept their call to action. So when they accept whatever has happened within the inciting incident. And for your antagonist, you pick their end goal, so their end game. What is it that they want to achieve? For instance, total world domination, or to retrieve a certain object, or to win a certain contest, something like that. So within my story, I filled this out as well. So my POV was first person, and the tense I use is past tense. The who of telling the story is Nikki, the protagonist. She's the I within the story. To whom she's telling the story to future generations of Illumini, which is the group she's part of. And why she's telling the story is to warn this future generation of the dangers of their powers and to show them that there's a different way to using it. Nikki's goal is to help Emily control her powers so she doesn't succumb to them and kills a bunch of people in the process. The goal of Loreen, the antagonist within this first draft, is to use Emily and her powers to destroy the world. So here you can also see that these goals that these two characters have are opposing. So the protagonist wants to help this person so that she doesn't kill a bunch of people, while the antagonist wants to use this person and does want to hurt a lot of people. So these goals are clashing against each other. So that's often the case between protagonists and antagonists. Sometimes they can have the same goal, but the way they go about it is very different, because antagonists usually feel that the end justifies the means, while the protagonist doesn't necessarily view it as such. If you'd like some more tips on editing, you can sign up for my free self-editing course, where you'll learn more about each stage of editing and how you can do it yourself. You can find the link in the description, and you can also get my developmental editing guide, which uses the steps that I follow within this video series. You can use within the description and add the code YouTubeEdit at checkout for a 60% discount. For more information on the types of editing or some more general self-editing tips, you can also check out my other videos. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to stay updated for more content. In the next video, we'll discuss the theme and the major plot elements. Thank you for watching.